Oh, man, it's good to be back. Took a week off last week, went on vacation, enjoyed it very much. In a different world, I might have had a mobile setup and we could have done a remote show that would have been worth doing, but I was having too much fun being on vacation, so I just leaned into that and had a good time. So we got a lot to talk about and catching up. This might be a more national show than average because the national stage is pretty active over the last 2 weeks. We're going to have to touch on the debate just a little bit. And, whatever else that pops up and goes through there. There's some local stuff at play, too, so we'll talk about that. And elections start Friday, so if you care about local politics, your county commission races and your assessor and all that stuff is happening right now. So you better figure out who you're voting for and do it soon. And you got some primaries and stuff in there, too. So almostagreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go to the website, almostagreement.com, check out the cool stuff we got there. Go to your favorite podcast provider, like, friend, follow, share, tell your friends about us, text it to people, do whatever you can do to help us get the word out. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, and here comes the show. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
What's the happening?
Oh, not much.
What's new with you?
Nothing.
How's unemployed life treating you?
Relaxing.
Nice. So both of us had vacation. We've both been on vacation for a week or so. So, yeah, lots of stuff going on. Lots of stuff missed. I missed you guys. I missed doing a show. I like doing my shows. I've had anxiety all week because I haven't got to pitch a fit about the debate yet in public. So I've had a few pitch and fits. We had some great, maybe change the word. We had some pretty substantial Supreme Court rulings come through this week, among other stuff. We got some new TIF projects and Planning Commission doing what they do. We got local elections coming up. We had the wonderful and my favorite thing, and as much as I'm become less patriotic as I've aged and I'm more angry about it, I still love the 4th of July parade. Nothing better than watching our multi-million-dollar helicopters our sheriff's office owns fly around for an hour, just back and forth.
Yeah.
Over and over again. Which... yeah, I don't know. There's part of it because those are the helicopters that. I guess I should appreciate this part because they're older helicopters. Therefore, they're probably a little cheaper. It's the same helicopter my dad flew when he was in Vietnam, and so every parade, every year, he'll tell some little you fly the helicopter like that over there, you got shot down immediately. It's like, yeah, Dad, I get it. They're on a parade route, man. They're
not doing evasive maneuvers.
They're trying to show off. They're not trying to sneak by us. They're trying to make sure we see them. But he did tell me something this year that was just apparently when they're there and they're flying over the jungle and stuff, the rule is you want those skids to touch the top of the trees. You want to be tapping trees as you're flying through the jungle, because you want to be that close to the treetop because it squeezes down the opportunity for them to get shot at. Because you have less time to react to them because you don't see them coming from as far away, and there's only so much gap between trees that you could see them through and shoot at them through, and so that was the method.
Yeah, I think almost depending on the canopy, that it would almost be better to be higher up, at least a little bit higher up.
I mean, I think it was
you were saying, if it's that kind of thick of a canopy, they're going to have less kind of line of sights to even see you. Right,
but I think it's either you're really, really, really high, so it's out of range of most small arms or whatever, or you're really, really, really low, so you have no time to respond to it. As I think that the general rule, as he explained it. Just a special announcement. I'm going, Scott from Compass and I are going to sit down and we're going to do a couple of special co-casts, for lack of a better word, where it's just going to be a 20-minute explainer on TIFs and pilots. And so, my goal with it, I just it came to me today while we were doing it because he was explaining this TIF or this pilot that is being asked for, and I've heard him explain it 50 times now, and I get his reasoning for explaining it every time because it is a not rare thing, but it is a complicated, weird thing. And so I was like, hey, why don't we do a special, 15-minute version of this explainer? And when we bring it up in future episodes or when you bring it up in articles, you can link to a YouTube video that we make of it or whatever, and you can just be like, hey, if you want to learn a little bit more about how pilots work, click here, and then we just have a quick explainer so it doesn't have to be the whole 10, 15-minute explainer every time.
Nice.
So it should be a fun little project because I'm gonna flex out on my editing skills that I don't have to try to put that together in a consumable palatable fashion. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. So look out for that over the next, I don't know, I'm not in a hurry, but I'd like to try to put that together with Scott over the next couple weeks or months. Be an interesting little thing. Okay, the debate. What's your take on the debate, friend?
I watched very little of it.
I had a very interesting experience watching the debate. We were at the beach house. The whole family's there. And we were playing cards, but we had it on, and the adults at least were kind of half paying attention. And my sister's sitting at the table with us, and every time Trump opens his mouth, like, she visibly shuddered. She's like, ugh, every time Trump starts to say anything. And then every time Biden would gaffe or pause or do one of his weird things that he does, my brother was on the couch laughing his ass off. Like, it was just like this funny little, like, my family is a very diverse, politically minded family, apparently. Yeah. And I'm sitting and I'm laughing at both of them because of my take on the whole thing. It's a sham. It's fucking bullshit. Right. We have two morons that are heading up the dumbest election in the history of our lifetimes, in my opinion. I can't think of one that's been this ridiculous, personally. Which gives me hope that maybe RFK, because apparently RFK did a simul debate. Like, it wasn't a debate, but he did a rally or something like that during the debate and had it on, like, his YouTube channel, and other people carried it live.
I didn't hear about that.
And it had as good a viewership.
Really?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, there's a little bit of vindication, because I know that AC specifically, but you and other people have given me shit about making fun of Biden's age, and it's like, no, it's pretty obvious. Like, it's hard to deny it at this point. Maybe it wasn't as bad when I was making fun of it a couple of years ago, but it's at least caught up to what I thought it was. He's in rough shape. It's just a reality, and I don't know why it's a bad thing at least for a period of time. It was a frowned upon conversation to have in public.
Well, he definitely sounded rough in it.
And I have more people I've still watched people bend over to try to pretend like it's not obvious. Like, that's what I don't get right now, like, currently. Like, I talked to my sister about it after the fact, and I mean, my sister's take is at least logical. It's like, yeah, he is old, and it's kind of sad and pathetic that this is our option, but I can't stand that, so I have to do this.
All right.
It's like, that's a logical take. I get that. You're not trying to defend the fact or trying to pretend like Biden isn't who Biden is. You're just acknowledging that you're willing to accept Biden for who he currently is, as opposed to Trump, which I can get behind that. That's a reasonable election argument to me. But, like, most of it's like, I mean, like, the Biden campaign, which of course they're going to spin it because that's what they're paid to do, is blaming it on he had a cold, and we're blaming it on he had the makeup people screwed him up, and he over-prepared, and so he had so much knowledge in his brain that he couldn't get the specific thing out at the time.
All right.
That's their official stance. And it's like, I don't know. Like, this is one of those times where they think we are that dumb. That's the only explanation that makes sense to me, is they think we are so stupid that we're going to believe that, oh, we practiced too hard and we put too much information in his head. That's why he couldn't get a single thing out of his mouth, because there was too much stuff in there for him to get it out neatly.
So he got nothing out?
I don't recall anything of any real value out of his any time he spoke in the whole debate, and we watched most of it.
Okay.
I mean, he had one good dig at Trump or something. I can't remember specifically what it was, but in the 90 minutes, I don't remember much of anything. And I think CNN did him dirty, and it wasn't CNN's fault.
I mean, a lot of debates, are just kind of like, you're going to talk about if you're the incumbent, you're going to talk about your accomplishments. You're talking about what. I think he did bring up things that Trump had did in his first thing that he tried to fix in his second, or things that Trump would do in his second term that Biden wouldn't do in his second term. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of just kind of like hyperbole. I could see a little bit to the over preparedness argument. I mean, I'm sure he was given like a booklet of like stats, hey, like, this is all the stuff you've done. Don't forget to tell them about, how much you spent on this, how much you did on that.
Well, he spent a week at Camp David, not doing his regular presidential duties.
Oh, they both had like, what they call like sparring partners, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, they're supposedly, and maybe that was it. In preparing for him, they expected, like, I think as ridiculous as the format was, I think some of the format led into Trump, like, gave an advantage to Trump. I think not having an audience, I'm not sure who that benefited more or not, but I think your mic's off unless you're addressed to speak.
I like the idea of it.
I think it's a great idea, but that lends well to Trump, because he, like, last time around in the 2020 election cycle, that first debate, Trump just came off like a jackass, and it didn't matter what Biden said, because every time Biden opened his mouth, Trump was interrupting him. And since this format didn't let him do that, it let Biden speak, and so we actually got to hear Biden speak. And I think that's where a lot of the conclusion of maybe
I thought I remember like more contentious was
some of the
Trump
primaries.
Trump and Hillary. Their debate was a whole lot of like back and forth.
Yeah, but no, I'm definitely in the 2020 cycle though. There was one, I think it was the first one that like Trump interrupted almost every time Biden started speaking, and in a lot of like the post-debate polling, people were like, I don't know, like I didn't get a chance to hear anything from Biden because Trump kept interrupting. Like I was really put off by how Trump was treating Biden, and in that debate.
Yes, I don't remember much of it.
I do recall it. But anyway, I think that format helped. I think the side by side that they had both of them side by side the whole time, which I'm sure it's not uncommon that in a normal debate when the other person's speaking that you don't really think about what you look like, but Biden kind of standing there with his mouth agape, kind of staring off into the mid distance, was not particularly flattering. I don't think it's uncommon. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it wasn't a particularly flattering setup. Did you see the post debate part where Jill had to help him down the 2 stairs off the stage?
No.
Okay. It might have been AI. You're right. I shouldn't quote that because I don't know.
Didn't say anything.
You gave the look. I know your face.
I've seen a couple quote unquote like videos as of late that are
there's some good ones
like
out there. Yeah.
gaffes of like Biden. There was like the paratrooper one where he was over in like Normandy. It was cut to make it look like he was just kind of like looking around at like nobody and was just lost. It's like I don't know where I'm at.
But it's a real video that was edited.
Who am I talking to?
Right.
Yeah, they cut out the people that were to his right that he was looking over at.
Sure.
But yeah, the way it was cut.
Yeah.
So sorry, you initially saying this like, oh, did you see the video right when he got off? Like Jill had to help
I
him off
agree.
the stage.
You're right. I need to get better at assuming the videos are fake all the time because
same thing happened. I guess some of Vinny did with like Obama. It was like, did you see that? Like Obama was having to help him walk off the stage. I was like, no, he's not a fucking invalid.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Perhaps. I don't know. I don't know the validity of the video. I took it at face value, and that was probably not correct on my part. You're right.
I'm sure she probably did come on stage and walk off the stage with him, but I don't know if I would characterize it as
because the other side of it is it did to me. It looked, if it's true video, to me it looked like she was significantly assisting him on the 2 stairs off the stage so that he could walk over and thank the moderators while Trump just walked off stage. So like Trump looked bad in the same post video too because the post was like Trump was just like looked around and then he just walked off side stage while Biden walked over and greeted and appreciated and thanked and shook hands with the moderators. And I was like, that's what you should do. I think maybe on the way in and the way out. I was taking bets with the kids. That was pretty fun too. I found an off store because it is illegal to gamble on politics in the United States. So no U.S. sports books will put out political lines, but it's not. They do it all the time. It's not an uncommon thing. People gamble on everything. Like right now, I think Trump's a significant odds favorite to win the election, according to a bunch of sports books. But I went up and looked up some of the ones that were out there, and will they shake hands when they enter the stage? Will they shake hands? Yes or no?
All right.
And it was like a minus 300 no. So if you're I say Vegas, but it's not actually Vegas. The sports book was betting that they weren't going to shake hands. They were trying to make the line to get people to take both sides and stuff.
All right.
Bunch of stuff. Like how many times I tried to make up my own line and it ended up being a 0, which I was surprised at. I figured Biden would bring up the felonies, his arrest a bunch.
I did see one thing that was talking about that they were surprised. No, I think he brought it up. He mentioned it like once.
Right, and I think
it was just talking about. I think he kind of like get it, not necessarily in passing, but like that has felonies against them.
Right, because they did talk. There was some back and forth about Hunter's arrests and stuff like that.
Oh, did they?
There was a little bit of that later in it. And honestly, the one that made the actual full picture clear and why and how terrible of a situation we were actually in. I know you heard about it if you didn't actually watch it. The very last bit was them arguing over their golf.
I did hear something about them.
It was unreal. I couldn't imagine. Like it was it was a scene out of Caddyshack, the original Caddyshack. Somebody did a dub of it and it was pretty funny, but like it was literally like Biden's attempted like stab joke was that you couldn't carry your own clubs, and he said something about how when he was vice president he had like a 6 handicap, which is crazy good. Like that's semi-pro level good golfer to have a 6 handicap, and Trump was talking about how he won some tournaments at Mar-a-Lago or whatever, and it's like, no, he didn't. Like both, like it was.
He did. He won dual championship. It was the seniors, but also he was a part of like the regular people's grouping tournament, so he won both of them.
I mean, again, the point being is that these are who we get to elect for presidents. Two people lying about their golf game in front of the world.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I know there's been some people that have talked about it. I don't know that there are any records to say whether Biden was telling the truth that he was a 6 handicap when he was vice president 20 years ago.
Right.
Not even 20 years ago. When was it? When did 16? So 15. So 10 years. Not even 10 years ago. So at 72, he was running a 6 handicap. That's pretty fucking impressive.
It could have been in the first term of Obama.
Okay, so then it's 66, 64. 64, 65, still a 6 handicap,
right.
At 65. I mean, Tiger won't have a 6 handicap. Like any of your greatest pros ever at 65 aren't throwing a 6 handicap out there. That's crazy talk. But anyway, the point is the two of them are going back and forth on the dumbest golf. I'm a better golfer than you. And it's like, who in the fucking planet?
Was that in like the section where they're asking each other questions? Like, why was it so much of a back and forth on this?
I don't remember how it started. I do not recall what started it, but it just turned into this, good old-fashioned, like Trump said something about how he's got a good golf game, and then Biden was like, I had a 6 handicap, and Trump's like, I won these tournaments, and Biden's like, I won this, and I did that, you can't carry your own plugs, and he's like, well, I don't need to carry my own plugs, and it was just like 45 seconds of the dumbest back and forth about golf between two old men. There's no other way to describe it. Like, none of it was true from either one of them. They were both bullshitting. Like, it's like fishing stories for golfers. It's the same. Like, both, right. Just blowing smoke about their golf game. Nobody cares about your golf game, dudes. Go play a tournament. Like, I'm surprised Trump didn't do it as in a post-debate interview. Be like, you know what, Mr. Biden, let's play a round of golf.
Let's have a debate. Let's debate on the course.
Let's debate on the golf course. That actually might be an interesting debate. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, both like out of breath. Like, hold on, let me catch my breath. Oh.
But that'd be kind of fun. Then walking around the golf course, playing golf and playing golf and answering questions and arguing with each other. That'd be
just a winner take all.
It would be as valuable as a debate as the one we just witnessed. So it can't be any worse. And the RFK thing, it pisses me off. Again, RFK is not a young man, and he has did he have throat cancer or something? What happened? What's the deal with his voice?
No idea.
He's got some issue with his voice. He sounds old. Like he sounds like he's 90.
He sounds really hoarse. Yeah.
Yeah. But if RFK was on the stage with the two of them, that's the contrast. Two old idiots and one less old, somewhat idiot, but not as ridiculous. Like it would have been that would have been there would have been a real contrast for people to see. These two guys and RFK, because RFK's freaking jacked. Have you seen him? Like he is a gym rat. It looks like he hits the weights. Not that makes him a valid president or anything, but I'm saying compared to these two guys,
right?
He looks like he's 30.
Yeah, no, 30. But
compared to these guys, he looks like he's 50 years younger than them. Maybe that's a better way to say what I'm trying to get at. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Anyway, that was the debate. In my opinion, it was very interesting to watch my room that I was in with it for me, just because of how diverse the politics. Because I got in a fight with my dad about Monica Irvine because my dad likes Monica Irvine, and I'm like, okay, he likes her because the District 6 lady, the one that thinks porn's in schools and that kind of stuff, and because he likes the fact that she's Mormon, and it's like I don't dislike the fact that she's Mormon, but her Mormon ideology has nothing to do with how my government should operate.
Should, yeah.
Well, and that's and that was the true argument my dad and I were having. It's like we can agree that morals are a thing, and well, I could even go so far as to be like in a true sense, Christian morals are not a bad template to build from. I can agree with that in premise, but on a lot of issues, that book doesn't hold. It's not a legal document. It doesn't get to make legal decisions on behalf of me. And my argument with my dad, it's like, yes, I agree that the book says that a man should not lay with another man, and that's fine for your take on it. That's not fine for our government's take on it, because my book could say that an 85-year-old shouldn't run for president, or 81-year-old or whatever shouldn't run for president. That's not how that doesn't make it the law of the land.
Right.
I don't have the right to exclude somebody from X, Y, or Z because I feel like my book says it better.
It's easy to find books that say all sorts of crazy shit.
Exactly. Exactly. But that's the point. I mean, that was the argument. I mean, that was a true argument my dad never had. It's like, I can agree with that a lot of the major religions have a good moral base to them, but a lot of them have some crazy ass shit to go with it too. And I'm not okay with just, taking the whole thing at face value and saying that's good enough for everybody, because it's not. It's just not. And so, like, homosexuality can be a sin all you want it to be. It doesn't mean it should be illegal. And that's where, like, our core argument with me and my dad was. I was like, this lady will go out and, like, she is not, like, again, she has drank the Kool-Aid. She believes what she's saying. It isn't her thinking that this is a way for her to win elections. This is her intent, is to go out and make it illegal to be gay, or illegal to do drag, or illegal to get an abortion of any kind, and illegal to do this and illegal to that. That is her intent. And I cannot abide.
I didn't realize how big the LDS church was around here. I don't know, there was a couple kind of like bigger churches, but I think I read a story a couple months ago that there was either a big one that just got finished or one that's like approved to be built off of like Watt Road.
Got me.
A temple, I guess they call it.
I don't know. I know I've seen them around, but like I don't know.
There was one right there by the mall. It's like right behind the mall.
Really?
Yeah.
The one like right on, like going into the neighborhood where the tools used to live? That's an LDS?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I drive by it every day with the kids who are at school.
Yeah.
I'll have to look next time I go. And I thought it was Lutheran, to be honest.
No, it's an LDS church.
Interesting. The more we know, we learn things every day. So since, like I said, this might be a more national episode than normal, I did email or text lawyer Jamie on his take. His response was, I have not read the actual rulings yet, so I'm going to reserve my opinions on them till later. Presidents are immune from almost everything.
Yeah, I was trying to read a couple different kind of takes on it to see if I couldn't figure a little bit more about it. Yeah, because they didn't explicitly say he has full immunity.
Essentially, my understanding of it from what I've heard and read on
like immunity for official acts.
Right.
They didn't list. It's hard to kind of hash out, and list out every single official act. Right. So it kind of leaves that gray area of what's considered an official act, what's considered a private act. I think that was kind of the biggest concern among most people that have focused on this was, it kind of leaves that kind of gray area of things on the periphery of. But it allows
it would allow like an appellate court judge at lower to be the arbiter of what isn't an official act. That's kind of like.
That's what this case did, was just kick it back down to the lower courts.
Oh no, they clarified that if it's an official act, the president is immune. But the lower court judges are for the particular it kicks back to that judge gets to decide whether the particulars brought are an official act or not. And so if that judge decides, okay, based on the preponderance of the evidence, it seems to me that this was not an official act, you can be tried for this.
Right. But also, I guess there was another part of it that had to do with like evidence.
Right. Evidence that would be included as part of an official act cannot be admitted into something that is deemed a non-official act.
Right.
And so, I don't remember. Like I saw, they gave an example of it, and I know was Sotomayor's dissent was like on the hypothetical. So, hypothetically, Biden right now could have Trump killed as an official act and not be prosecuted for it.
Hypothetically.
And I don't quite get that. I understand this was the argument absurdum. You're trying to go to the most extreme version that could possibly exist to show the example. I'm not exactly sure, because that's not an official act of the president. I mean, I guess it would be that Biden. I mean, I guess technically, the argument could be made that Trump is a national security threat and he needs to be gotten rid of. And I think you could kind of make that argument. I mean, certainly people have made that argument that he is a national security threat to the United States, and that as a result of that, he needs to be thrown in Gitmo or whatever you do with national security threats. And so that would be an official act, and it would not be considered a an election tampering kind of thing because it is an official act. If it was just a personal, I want to get rid of this guy because I don't want him to run against me, that would be a personal act because it's not in the official capacity of your office to rid yourself of opponents.
Right.
It's an official act of your office to protect the country from foreign threats, foreign or domestic. So, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I don't understand that one enough to be honest with you exactly what it means. Like, I actually listened to a debate, a couple of proper, like, lawyers who do a bunch of Supreme Court stuff and know what they're talking about or whatever. They were going back and forth on it about how it makes it, like, one of the guys' arguments is, like, this is how it's always been. It's just never been explicit.
Yeah.
Other presidents have done...
Basically, it's always been understood that there was still that possibility. And I love how they keep, kind of bringing up the whole Nixon thing. Or his pardon, basically. That, LBJ, like, in it, apparently, basically said, like, I'm pardoning him because otherwise he would be prosecuted.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, it's been throughout our history of, like, the closest thing we had to an impeachment. Where he was basically going to get impeached, but he
resigned at a time. Right.
Resigned instead.
He preemptively quit.
Yeah, basically. But, I mean, even Richard Nixon, or even, LBJ, the president at that time, didn't have the illusion that whatever a president does is immune.
Right.
That he even then knew, and most presidents knew, that they still had the possibility of something they do. I don't buy the argument that, this is going to, handcuff future presidents because they're always going to be wondering and worrying, that anything they do, could come back to haunt them later. Like, yeah, you should have that thought. You're making some pretty big fucking decisions.
Right. You should. Right. You should.
Like, it's very rarely that they're going to have to make, like, split-second decisions, like a 9/11 type thing. Like, hey, we've just been attacked. We need to figure out what the hell we're doing right now.
Right, but
they're not doing that. Like, you have a plethora of lawyers at your dispense.
What other person in any situation is immune from the consequence of their action? Period.
All right, and that's what it was in. I was trying to find some good quotes of Sotomayor's, where she basically, her and Tanya Brown said that.
Yeah, like that to me, like that. That's kind of my generic take on it. It's like if I did that, whether because it's been one in the past where, like, there's been cases brought against soldiers and generals and stuff like that for like individual actions in a war zone or something like that.
Right.
Where it's like, the defense was I was just following orders, or I was just doing my job kind of stuff. And it's like, that's a tough one. I mean, that one is a tough one. If you're in an actual war zone and stuff like that, it's like just doing my job is a tough argument to sell. But at the same time, it's like, you know what? At some point, you know better, and because your commanding officer told you so doesn't mean you have to do it. And if that gets you thrown in the brig or whatever it is, then you deal with those consequences, and there should be some avenue for you to clear your name when you refuse to kill children in a war zone or something like that, when your commander tells you to.
All right.
So I don't think, that's the thing. I don't think the idea of, like, it's part of my job is a valid defense. It shouldn't make you immune from anything. If anybody else can get arrested for it, so should you. That's kind of my take.
Oh, it kind of seemed to me like they were just basically trying to say that, that they wouldn't want to have a president that's, constantly having to second guess their decisions.
Right, which is what they already do all the time, always, everywhere. Anyway, like, how many lawyers work for either are actually attorneys or in the White House or were attorneys who are in the politics game. Like, that's all you do is sit around and have legal conversations. Some of it's whether it's legal against me or not, or whether this is a legal thing for us that we can or can't do. But that's like half the people that work in the White House are lawyers. Whether they're actually attorneys for the president, or they're just attorneys who work in other positions in cabinets or whatever. They were attorneys and they left their attorney job to come work the White House or whatever. And so, yeah, I don't buy that as they should be asking that question all the time. I guess I'm agreeing with you on that. It's that should be a constant before they make a decision.
I mean,
is this criminal
the
of me
biggest
to do?
argument? I'm trying to think what the other main argument was in this. Because someone kind of got into the weeds of they're trying to look back in the intent, of how presidential powers were written into the Constitution, and all sides kind of like to read and misread things how they want to, and kind of flip flop between originalism and contextualism.
Yeah.
Like, well, we have to look at the writer's original intent. It's like, well, we have to look at it from the modern lens.
Right. Their intent was...
It's like, well, you need to pick a side then. Because if your argument is that for both, then that doesn't work. You can use that argument once.
Right. Last time you were here, you were contextualist, so...
Right.
Don't come at me with a originalist argument. Yeah, because there's that one, and then there was a... I don't remember this case name one, but it was basically something about the ability for the government at large to interact with social media companies.
I think it was a couple different cases, but yeah, I think it was Texas and Florida that I think were the two main cases that we're talking about it.
Yeah, and then the third one is the Chevron deference one that you've brought up a few times on the show, which, at least in my gut reaction view of it, and in the pre-official reading from Jamie, he disagrees with my take, but that I'm okay with. I acknowledge that our Congress sucks and doesn't accomplish much ever, but I'm okay with the idea that the elected officials should be the ones that making the rules, not like they write the laws, and inside their writing of the laws, it should include, like how the rules are. The Chevron deference, like, do you know the history of the case? I'd let you learn that in learning about this.
I think I saw something on it a while ago. I think it goes back to the actual Chevron of the 80s was the case, I think.
Right. It was a fishery in in and around Maine or something like that. It's northeast somewhere. It's a fishery, and it was either the EPA or it was the EPA. Some Congress had passed some law, basically saying EPA take care of this item. You need to now regulate commercial fishing in these waterways or something like that. And so the EPA, in making their rules for it, said, okay, well, they say we need to regulate it. This is how we're going to regulate it. And this fishing company or whatever was getting fines from the EPA, and their argument, it's like, the law doesn't say anything about fines. You can't just fine me because you feel like it. You have to work within the framework of the law you were given, and that law doesn't say anything about fines. And so that went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and this is where we get the Chevron deference case law of the past that has now been changed, was that the courts at the time said it is within the framework that these administrative entities can are their interpretation of how to administer the law is given to them will be treated as the law, is basically how it came out.
Yeah, that was basically like if a law is written but it doesn't explicitly speak to, I guess, the specific instance of that fishery or whatever, that then the rules would then, or the law would then defer to whatever the governing agency of that.
Right, whatever the regulating body does with their rules and stuff like that, it would be assumed to be within the law that was written originally.
Yeah.
Which I get it for theoretical ease of function, that Congress says, hey, we need to protect these waterways so that we don't get them fished to extinction or whatever. But if that's the totality of the law, is, hey, EPA, don't let them fish it to extinction. Well, there's a million ways to get there. And to have a non-elected body being the ones to make the decisions on how punishments, like how many fish you're allowed to do, I acknowledge the professional or the expert knowledge that the EPA might have on the topic is an important part of the framework. But to leave the totality of it in the hands of a non-elected body seems inappropriate to me. So that's kind of my general take on it. I feel like it's it should have been very well within the ability of Congress when they're making said thing and saying, getting with the EPA, mean okay, help us understand exactly what we need to do and how to do it. Okay, well, you get this many tons of fish a year, you get this many, these are the things you can and can't do, and this is the punishments that we'll put into place if you break said said law, and they put that into law, and then the EPA goes out and administers that law instead of making up the specifics and administering it. And again, I understand that Congress doesn't work well, and this is asking Congress to work well on any number of topics, and that's a huge ask. But again,
I don't know much on the specific case. I guess what was brought to kind of overturn this kind of Chevron doctrine or whatever it was called. Chevron deference.
I don't know if this is that case. I don't know if it's a continuation of that 80s case or if this is a new. I don't know what the specifics on the new rules are, or maybe that's what it is. The original one had nothing to. Maybe the fishery one.
I think that was considered kind of like a precedent at the time,
right? But I think maybe the fishery one is the new one, and I don't remember what the original one was.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think the newest one did have to do with the fishery.
Right. So the fisheries are saying the EPA is fining us, and nowhere in the law does it say anything about a fine. That's their legal argument.
I can't remember specifics of it.
Something like that. Okay.
When I did watch or listen to one kind of analysis on this, and one odd thing that was kind of their big kind of pushback against it, and that I guess allowing this to pass or overturning it, however it precluded. I don't know if it got kicked back down to a lower court, but I guess now the new thing is if I can get this right. There were a few agencies that was kind of exempt from it, but it had to do with, like, it extended the statute of limitations, where I guess part of that was the statute of limitations would start when the new law was applied. But apparently that it's kind of elongated that, and that you could basically start a new company, and because I guess it's all about damages, so you can sue or create a lawsuit as soon as you can claim that damages have been done. So even if it was a law that was passed a long time ago, or if you are now a new company and can file a claim for new damages on a law that's been on the books 50 years or whatever. And that was their big pushback, is this is kind of opening up a door of companies kind of doing an end round and just basically starting a new LLC and then saying that, like, oh, well, now we're a new entity and we're having losses because of this.
Right. We could have been an entity a decade ago if this regulation wasn't in our way. Is that their?
No, they already were an entity. But I guess it's a way to kind of like restart the process of
continuing a lawsuit, something.
Of continuing a lawsuit, or trying to, like, I guess chipping away at it. It's opening up more avenues for potential lawsuits.
Don't know. That's interesting. I have to get some more knowledge in that topic. But
it's a lot of legalese.
Yeah, it is, and I wish we had a better attorney that could visit the show and tell us more about it. But he's busy doing what his subset of legal is. Jamie's great. If you need him if you need somebody to do the particular things he does, he's great at them. It's just that he is a very fine. He's a fine pen in a. He's a well sharpened crayon in a giant crayon box that each color is important. Like, each color has its specialty. There's a place for each color. There's no lawyer that's every crayon in the crayon box.
Right.
That's what I'm trying. That's the analogy I'm trying to put together. Right.
Okay.
He's a very sharp one on his particular color of crayon, but to expect him to know the entirety of all the crayon box it's a big ask. I get it. It's just...
It's like, trying to ask him about tax law. He'll laugh in your face.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know nothing about tax law.
Yeah.
New hemp law is crazy, and it's driving me nuts, but I'll leave it at that. Going back to the debate a little bit, I was listening to an interview with RFK, and he had referenced a Gallup poll that says 51% in this, and it was like a 20,000, like, it was a big poll. It wasn't like a little, like, 2,000 or 3,000, it's like a 20,000 subject poll. Is that the right word? Subject, people, whatever. 51% identified as independent, 25% Republican, 23% Democrat, and we can't get an independent on stage. I just think it's I don't know the history. I'm curious I would assume that's probably an all-time high in independent voters. But people who identify as independent voters.
Could be, yeah.
And I would say that it's a direct result of who their candidates. Like I can't imagine it's really actually independent voters. It's people that are just so.
I would say some that are kind of just disillusioned at, what the party puts up as their supposed platform or what their party represents or are.
I agree. But I'd say that's
I don't really see myself.
That's probably the
that
standard 15-20% that's been independent for the last 30 years.
Maybe.
But the uptick, I would say, a significant chunk of the rise in independent identifying voters is, I don't know if I can vote for either one of these guys.
That's right. I already heard that.
I would like more options.
Hillary's going to step in, and then I heard that Michelle Obama was going to step in. Gavin Newsom's going to step in.
Gretchen Whitmer.
Kamala's going to step in.
I think the best ticket that I've seen that really actually truly makes sense in the way Democrats like to pick people, it would be a Gretchen Whitmer or Cory Booker ticket.
I don't think Cory Booker would have a better chance as president, not vice president. I think Cory Booker would have a better chance versus Whitmer running. He actually ran for president.
Sure.
2020.
Right. I thought it was a smart take because I think Gretchen Whitmer doesn't have the. I think she does have a good amount of name recognition because of the plot to assassinate her a couple years ago.
Yeah, but that's not something you want to hang your hat on. Well, hey, a bunch of people wanted to kill.
Absolutely, for if you're running against Trump, absolutely. I'm the lady that Trump tried to get killed. So if you hate Trump, you vote for me because Trump hates me.
You're going to run on that your opponent tried to get you killed?
Yeah, but you spin it and say like Trump was so afraid of me that him and his followers tried to get rid of me. You spin it as they tried to get rid of you because you were a threat. Absolutely,
they were Trump followers.
I mean, they were painted as such in the media, at least. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think for the identity politics and smarts and stuff like that, I think that ticket made sense to me. You can't have a white dude on the head of the ticket, that's for sure.
Yeah, we talked about it a while ago. Like if Biden wasn't running, who else would have been a good presidential candidate? And there wasn't really like a solid number one, number two choice.
I think Newsom or Whitmer are probably actually truly the best options. They have executive experience from significant states of Michigan and California. They have. If you're in the camp of left leaning ideologies, I'm sorry. If you're a left leaning person, you're pretty comfortable with the things that they've done in their individual states over time. They have that executive experience. I do think they both have a decent amount of name recognition, and had they been running actively over the last year, they'd have enough. They'd be real names, as opposed to. There was no real primary conversation on the Democrat side this year, which is not uncommon in an incumbent presidency and stuff like that. But had the party been like, hey, you know what, maybe we should let a real primary run this time, you would have heard their names a lot more. They would have been on the stage. You would have seen debates in primary with them. Their name, we know Cory Booker because he primaried last time.
He's got a pretty decent social media following.
I don't know him from social media. I know him because he ran for president in 2020.
I mean, not a social media following. He's in the media enough, I guess.
Right. He is a face that is active in media spaces. I agree with you there. But I don't think he was prior. He wasn't super active in 2018. I mean, hell, Obama wasn't, he was a freshman senator from Illinois.
Before he ran, yeah.
Yeah. But he wasn't like a national figure before he got in the race.
True.
And the race for the Democratic nominee is what made him a national figure. So my point being is if Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom were actually running for president since, I don't know, a year ago, we would know them much better. They would be much more strongly known names, like a Cory Booker or a Pete Buttigieg.
Possibly, yeah.
I heard, on that same guy that was talking about that, his take was... Biden resigns in the next resigns in September. Lets Kamala take office. But won't, no, how did they word that? It would have to be before that because of the nomination process. In August. He resigns mid-August, right before the official nominations have to be in. The party nominates who they want, but he resigns. Kamala finishes his term, so we have the first black lady president, and Biden gets to be attached to making the first black lady president happen. And then whoever the party puts up, in this guy's take, was Gretchen Whitmer with Cory Booker.
Huh.
And then we'd have the first female, we'd have the first female elected president after the first female assumed president, and Joe Biden could, ride off into the sunset, being the architect of the most glorious thing to ever happen to the White House, and letting the ladies in.
It's a crazy thought.
It's all wishful thinking, because for all I've heard since then, the Biden family and Biden himself has no intent of getting out of the way, and at this point, with presidential election politics at play, the only way, because the states that did do primaries and stuff like that already have their electors set, the only way that he isn't the official nominee for the Democrats is that if he steps aside. There is no contested primary or contested what do they call it when they get the people together? Convention.
Caucus.
Convention. There's no way they could, by bylaws inside the Democratic Party, they cannot do a contested convention. Although there are, Michigan and a couple other states have some undeclared delegates, uncommitted delegates, rather, but not enough to make a substantial difference on the floor. They have to vote the way their primary was voted for. And so there's no way Biden isn't going to be the nominee unless Biden chooses not to be. The party can't pull him out of the way.
Yeah, it's also something that LBJ did that, I guess, going into his, so it would have been his second term.
Right. Knew he wasn't going to win. Or was it the writing was on the wall, at least that's the story that I'd heard. That the writing was on the wall, and either you can force it and go down as the loser, or step aside and at least open the door for some change. And he stepped aside. And apparently he was much more ambitious and egotistical than Joe Biden is that the story I heard on him was. He really wanted to be president and really wanted to continue to be president. But somebody was able to convince him that he wasn't going to be president again either way.
All right.
And so either you can go down in history as that loser, or you can go down in history as the guy who stepped aside and swallowed his pride and became a more magnanimous figure for it. So good on him, I guess. But I don't know. It's that independent thing, that Gallup poll is interesting. I find that pretty fascinating. I'm really curious how this is all going to shake out. Because at least according to RFK and his people, there is no way he's not going to be on enough ballots to get to 270. There's no way he said in the interview, he's like, we should be on all 50. He didn't guarantee that he'd be on all 50 states, but he's like, there's only a couple states that we don't have more signatures already in play, and they're honestly he said it, which I thought was an interesting to say, but he's like, there's states that don't really matter anyway. We're going to be on their ballots, but they're like Rhode Island's and Wyoming's, which are 3, 2.
Yeah.
It's they're not really going to make a difference to it, but we want to be on those ballots too. And so we'll see. I'm curious if CNN will give him the opportunity to be on the next debate.
Somebody else is putting it on. I thought CNN had this one.
Oh, I don't know. I hope whoever the next one is lets him on stage. I think that if you I think the decision.
He wasn't far from the threshold of this CNN debate.
I mean, honestly,
they put it out prior to, and they're like, these are the metrics. Sorry.
Well, but the problem with it is that technically, technically,
there were still some states that
haven't certified his ballot access yet. Yes, but technically, there's a bunch of states that Biden's not on yet because the party hasn't nominated their candidate yet. So, the nomination, the actual official nomination for the Democratic Party, they moved up to July, sometime late July. But it was supposed to be in August.
Was he on the ballot in all the states? I think that was part of it, was if you were on the ballot in the states.
You're not on the ballot. The ballot doesn't exist yet because they don't have a nominee. A lot of states have.
It's just you're registered as a candidate for that race.
I mean, I would think I don't know because the way independent candidates work. I mean,
I thought that was the thing. You had to be on the ballot.
Right.
Right. So there's some states that haven't certified their ballots, but I think that's different than, I think you certify it like that is the final ballot, period. There's nothing else to be added or changed.
Right. But the certification process for an independent candidate is you have enough signatures and they've gone through the signatures and verified and blah, 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 blah to put you on the ballot. Or you won your primary or whatever, but we haven't made the ballot yet. I don't know. That's a good question. Chris Davis, hit me up. I'm curious to know. Is Joe Biden on the ballot in Tennessee already? Because you can't, I
think you've already pulled up a sample ballot. Or he was on it.
I pulled up the when we were back in primary and like before Super Tuesday. We did have, he was on.
I'm assuming he couldn't be on the primary if he wouldn't be on the general.
But just because he won the primary doesn't mean he's in the general, though. Like, I don't know. Like, because he's not the nominee yet. Because he could win the primary in Tennessee. He could have won Super Tuesday in Tennessee, right?
Right.
But he loses every other state, and Gretchen Whitmer wins the overall primary for the Democrats. Well, Joe Biden was on the primary, so was Gretchen Whitmer, but Gretchen Whitmer lost by our ballot. But the party put Gretchen Whitmer on as their nominee. He's the assumed, which is accurate, and he will be the nominee. But I don't know that he is officially on any ballots yet because he hasn't been nominated by his party yet. Because again, the primary is a figment of the party play anyway. The primary has nothing to do with me and you. The primary is what the party takes to make their decision from.
Oh.
Again, Chris Davis, hit me up.
I'm assuming that he is on the ballot in enough states. Biden and Trump are on the ballot in enough states to reach that threshold for the previous CNN debate.
I don't know that that's 100% true. I would hope so.
RFK had a leg to stand on as far as him being on the ballot in enough states, and assuming he would have had some kind of recourse to go back at CNN and be like, no, I'm eligible for this debate because I'm on.
He's made that argument. Just because he made the argument doesn't make them say, oh, okay, well, in that case, let's set you on stage. We say you didn't make the threshold. You say you do. There's no legal entity. It's not like the parameters to get on the debate stage are a legally binding document.
No, but I'd say it's pretty easily verifiable. I mean, it may have been like splitting hairs, be like, well, I'm eligible in 20 states or whatever. But that doesn't mean that he is on the ballot in those states.
I think that's exactly what their argument was against him, is that he had the signatures, but they had not certified his signatures yet.
I don't know.
That was his argument. He's like, I have the signatures because the election commission hasn't certified my ballot yet. Doesn't mean I'm not on the ballot.
I want to say like the most recent one leading up to it is he had to be on in it wasn't enough states, but in enough states to where their electoral votes would add up to 270. Right. Yeah.
Right. He had to be on enough states to get 270. If he won every state that he was on, he could. You have to be on enough states to win.
They gave him 13 states or whatever it was where he wasn't too far shy of it. And I don't think that was just blowing smoke up his ass and be like, well, you made it close. Good job. Here's a pat on the back.
Well, it's because different states
almost made it.
Because different states' election commissions have different timelines and how they do stuff. And when it goes from...
I don't think some of those same states could say that Trump and Biden were on it, but RFK wasn't if he didn't have enough signatures or whatever in those states.
I would think that I think the reality of it is that those states say there is a placeholder for a Republican and a Democrat. So a Republican and Democrat will be on the ballot. Who those are is unimportant to the argument. That would be my guess at how those states look at it.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because we will have a Republican and a Democrat. The parties will figure out who those are later, but we will have them, so they're assumed on the ballot, whoever they decide. And so if the party's not going to pitch a fit that Joe Biden's at the convention, then the election commission isn't either. That would be my guess. But I don't know. Oh, I did learn on libraries. I followed up on library stuff after last week's conversation. I interrupted the Compass podcast today to ask them this question because they were talking about books in school libraries and stuff like that. And I stand corrected to take note on July 5th at 9 o'clock-ish. I'm admitting a fault that There is not some state body. The state and local school boards put together criteria, but an individual librarian at their will can bring in a book. But they do have to be able to argue that it's within the criteria that they are allowed to bring in books with.
So a librarian could have individual choice upon bringing in books,
yes.
I guess, if they were the person that were in charge of ordering or whatever.
No, they can. I mean, they can say, "Buy me this book," or "I bought this book." I don't know. The funding is like probably a separate conversation, but this book was donated to the library, and I think it'd be a good book for us to have. So take the money out of the conversation. That librarian can bring that book in, as long as it fits the criteria, and then there's a process for arguing whether it fits the criteria or not. But my understanding of it and talking to the guys about it earlier is that they'll only be questioned if it's questioned.
What was it that you thought prior?
I thought there was a state. I thought the majority of actual physical materials that are in our schools came through a state purchasing thing, because that was the point. Remember, we were talking about, like, you know, I mean, obviously, like, true curriculum textbooks come through the state. They order those in bulk, but the volumes of book in the library are there's a bunches of different ways that those are actually brought in, physically brought in, whether they're bought through like the state buys a bunch of books and then distributes them, whether the county buys the books and distributes them, or the individual library buys the books with the budget they get at the beginning of the year, or whatever that works. But the librarian's job is to follow the state law as well as the policy set forth by the school board on what books are and are not allowed in. Not by title, but by content.
Okay.
So, interesting stuff.
You stand corrected, though. I'm not quite sure of the discrepancy.
My understanding, or what I thought was the truth, was that the state did everything. That a local librarian didn't have the ability to pick a book and just bring it.
Oh, okay.
Like, I thought it was like, that was kind of my, like, it's like, which, I mean, it's still like with my Irvine conversation about the Alabama director of whatever the fuck, and that the publishers are sneaking books in. That is not the case, or that could be the case if the librarian lets it get snuck in. And so,
that's possible.
Yeah,
sneaky librarians. Well,
and you know, it's the policy is going to be interesting. I may start an ironic org just to point out the ridiculousness and go like by the letter of the law and the policy that the school board is going to put in place next week, and just go through the catalog that's online that they have to put online and find books like the Game of Thrones series is the one that Jesse was referencing. Apparently that there are a number of high schools that have the Game of Thrones series.
Nuh-uh.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of SCX.
There is a lot of
books.
SCX. Not only that, but like the literal first scene of that series. Do you remember what it was? The show was accurate, at least for like the first 2 seasons, and then things got wonky. The first thing, the first scene was the Lannister. The Lannisters fucking the brother sister.
Okay, that wasn't in the first. Sorry, I was seeing the TV series. That was in the first episode. I think it was in the first season.
I'm pretty sure that was one of the very first like.
I think it might have been like season finale.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the first thing, because that's when they shoved Bran out the window.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I think it was the season finale.
I don't know. Whatever. It's very early. The moral of the story.
Yeah.
So it was very early in the series, both book and show. But that's in our school libraries. So I'm gonna go. Like I'm gonna go to school board meetings and be like, you need to take this book out. You need to take this book out. Just go. And apparently the Bibles are in our library, so we can try to conclude the library and
I know they're in the library
and pick specific.
I think they've withstood some pushback from people that have tried to do the same thing. They kind of have like this blanket, for good moral character.
Well, to be fair, the Bible is not generally explicit in its sex scenes. It's
right, but I mean, if you're going to make that exception for any book, they're like, well, for the most part, the book is heartwarming, except for that one rape scene, it's like, okay, well then, if you're going to exclude things that have,
but I'm saying, like, even in the Bible, when there is it's always inferred. It's that Lot gave his daughter to the horde, it doesn't talk about what the Horde did to his daughter specifically. It's just inferred in the context, as opposed to a whole scene about incest in Game of Thrones.
I thought it was Lot's daughters that got him drunk to seduce him or something.
Maybe that's it. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the Bible well enough.
I know bits and pieces.
I probably shouldn't try to stand on that one when I go up here, but again, I mean, that's the point. It's the question is, it's like, one, who's complaining about the books, but two, it's like, okay, fine, this is the law. Let's play the game, and let's go through everything. What breaks the law? Get it out of there. Let's see what's left, and then let's have a real conversation if this is the world we want to live in. Because like any good law quote, the people that are advocating for it only think about it in their own context.
Right.
Like, it's the same thing when we talk about like presidential powers and stuff like that. The Democrats love it when the president has the power to do X, Y, Z, unless the president is a Republican. Then it's all about slowing down the presidential powers. But when their guy gets elected, they're like, give him all you got, and it's back and forth every time, and it's this constant. Where a more reasonable legislative body would think, well, maybe this person we're giving authority to might be on the team that we don't like, so maybe we shouldn't give the authority to our guy because eventually their guy's going to get it. We don't want their guy wielding this power. And if we don't want their guy wielding the power, then we should be okay with our guys not. That would be the logical thing to do. So let's put it to the test. That's kind of my point. Let's see if the people who are advocating for all this book stuff really want the libraries to be just empty because nothing fits their criteria by the letter. Because they can't just come out and say, we hate fags, so we don't want gay books in our libraries. They can't come out and say that because that's politically problematic for them.
Right.
But that's really what they're trying to do. So, again, we need to test them. It'd be fun. So, I don't know. Shoot me an email. See if you want to help me run my organization to just make a ruckus at school board. As a publicity stunt. I mean, that's all it is. And really, that's all the Moms for Liberty is too. It's just a publicity stunt for conservatives as a way to make these issues bigger than they actually are, so they can get people elected. That's all this is. It's an election game.
Part of it, yeah.
I disagree with the part of it. What's the other part of it? Like, do you really think?
I think there are some that wholeheartedly think that they are doing the greater good for society in doing this.
You're right. Actually, I apologize because you're right. Because that's my whole take on Monica Irvine. She's the type that she thinks it's the right thing to do, not that it's a political move. You're right. I apologize. You're 100% right. I'm agreeing with you, even if my tone doesn't match.
I got
it. Okay. What else we got? The Hawk-Tuah girl. Yeah, I don't know. I was just dumping stuff in there. I don't remember this one. Trade union. Oh, no, that's the video. Oh, no, it's not. What is that? I forgot what I sent you.
Did you send me something?
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, okay. This is from Trade Union Congress on Instagram. I was just putzing around, and this video came across. And we talked about the cost of living and how expensive shit is, right? I've been making that point. And how Biden campaign is running on inflation's under control. It's only at 2.5% or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And this is a good explainer of what is actually happening, in my opinion.
Prices being around there to prices being there. And you don't really see that in this data, okay? Because inflation is really just measuring the difference between that and that. And if you look at those two lines, you're talking about a 2.3% change. That's the number we're talking about today. But for a lot of people, it's not about that. It's about the difference between this and that. And when you look at the difference between this and that, that's 20%. And I think that's the dichotomy here between these inflation numbers where it looks normal and this, which is really not normal at all. That's the cost.
See what I mean? Does that make sense? For those listening, this guy's got a graph, and he's just pointing out that over the last year, inflation at 2.3, 3.2% or whatever is a fairly normal inflation rate. But when you look back into the 2001 range, it's that jump that's like a 20% jump in cost of living. That's basically what he's talking about. Or in prices.
Unfortunately, I can't really see the scale or what exactly he's talking about. He's got a source of the ONS.
Cost of living crisis.
Yeah, I don't know what the left side of the graph is exactly.
He's talking about 20%, It's been a while since I took probability and statistics. But if it was up 20% from, what was it saying, like 2021 to 2022 maybe?
20% from 21 to today, 23, 24.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little fuzzy on like adding up percentages, but wouldn't that mean that your inflation rate, because the inflation rate is year, he's right in what he's saying, that the inflation rate is comparing year to year. Previous year to current year.
Yes.
Is your inflation rate.
Right.
But I would think if you looked back and added those two together, should add up to 20% or whatever. If you looked at it from 4 years prior to this year.
You have a year that's 9%, a year that's 8%, a year that's 3%, a year that's 3%. That's about 20%.
Right. And don't think we've ever had that. I think for the past few years, I think we've stuck around 2 to 3%.
Absolutely not. Early 21, we didn't get to double digits, but we got up to 7/8 and stuff for a little while.
Our inflation rate?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I could see if I could find a chart that's going to show.
I don't know who puts out those official numbers.
All right, we'll go with 1980. USinflationcalculator.com. All right, this goes all the way back to 1914.
Well, you typed in 1980.
I did. All right, so 2022. And so this is, they go month to month in this chart. So 21 started at 1.4 and got up to 5.4 and over the summer, 6.2, 6.8, 7.0, 4.7 in December, 7.5 in January of 22, 7.9, 8.5, 8.3, 8.6. So if you take that with just like the one row of 21 and average that out, that's going to be like a 5 plus.
Yeah.
You take the row of 22 and average that out, that's going to be an 8 plus. And then you take a 23 that's 6s and 5s, and then it starts to settle back down into the 3s. On the late half of 23, early 24, we're in the 3s. And so, like you said, if you go, I don't know, November, October, over the couple years in question, you have a 6.8, a 7.1, and a 3.1 in respective years. So that's 17% right there. Or if you come back to probably what this guy was talking about, maybe the inflation numbers for May over the last couple of years. May 2020 at a 0.1, and then you go to a 5, 8, 6, 4, 3, 3. And so from 2020, that's again 13, 17, 20%. That's right in the 20% range. And that's I've only saved that video and sent it and shared it, and we put it on here to illustrate, like, that's what I've been trying to, like, that's an illustration of what I've been trying to talk about. Yeah, from today to this time last year, it's not a big jump. But if you back up, it's a big jump from, and again, I don't want to do, it doesn't, we always talk about it in presidential parameters, but it's like, that's the argument we've had on the show, is that Biden is running on his handling of the economy when the inflation was out of control for a good chunk of his term. And a lot of that, and to be fair, a good chunk of that's not really his fault. A lot of that was the come down from the pandemic that was inevitable.
Yeah, so like 2022, I don't remember being at 8% inflation. Or it being talked about that we're at 8% inflation.
I do. Now. I recall it. I recall it being a very heated topic. Because there was like all this arguments about like, what do you actually include in inflation? Does this count? Does that count? Is gas in there? Is this not? And like there was a bunch of like cope where it's like, well, if you take out gas and housing, it's only X. And it's like, well, yeah, but what does everybody need to live their life? A place to live and a way to get to work. So you can't really exclude gas and housing from the conversation. Which I think general inflation numbers does not count housing anyway, honestly. I don't remember. There's a whole list. Consumer Price Index is one of the ones that they reference a lot.
All right.
And that one does not include housing.
Yeah, I think that's just like goods, basically.
Right. It's supposed to be like grocery stuff. You know, go back to 1918 when shit got serious and we were in 18 and 20%, 1920.
We have negative inflation rates.
Coming out of the Great Depression.
That was in 29.
Yeah, that's coming out of World War I.
That still would have been a few years
No, it's
prior.
17, yeah. I don't know. 29. Yeah, it was all negative coming out of the Great Depression. I don't know. It's good. Economists. So the value of the dollar goes up because the supply of stuff is up? I don't know. It's a good question.
What are you talking about?
Negative inflation.
Oh.
Because that's the supply of goods. Like if the supply gets out of control, then the prices drop because there's too much supply.
It's part
so that'd
of
be
it,
a way to get a negative inflation. Or you have a bunch of people go off and die in war, and then you have a lower population demanding, so the supply is up because the demand is down.
It looks like the first couple of years of the Great Depression were like, well, that's a difference of month to month when they're talking about month to month.
Yeah, I think so. So
Is that a difference over month to month? Or is that
I think it's difference from that month last year.
Okay.
So from January of 28 to January of 29 is a minus 1.2% from January to January.
Huh, that's weird. 1930 stayed pretty stable. It wasn't until 31, 2 years, a year and a half or so after the actual crash that inflation started going down.
Yeah.
Sort of deflating a whole bunch.
Right. It would be, I mean, that would be that nobody had any money to buy anything. And so those producing stuff were lowering their prices because they didn't have anybody who was capable of buying it. That'd be the only thing that makes sense to me.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Because we're in this age of
So
like,
it would also get to that tipping point of where you're not making money to where you then got to increase your prices.
right.
Because you haven't been making money.
Or you stop selling.
Right.
And then you don't have people that work for you, and then those people can't buy stuff. And then that causes further deflation. Theoretically. If you don't want to dip into your rich reserves because you're an owner.
How do we go to high inflation during World War II?
During World War II?
Yeah, in 42.
Because the war spending. Value of the dollar goes down because they're spending so much money. They're adding so much money to the economy to buy and build. And supply goes way down because we were rationing in World War II, right?
Yeah.
So the supply's way down, and so the cost of goods goes up. Because the government's buying so much of the stuff to send to the boys.
Right.
Anyway, that was that thing. So
Yay, inflation.
yay, inflation. It's a necessity. I don't know, man. I'm missing a ton of stuff. Elections, like I said, early voting starts on Friday. No, Monday. Friday? 12th. Monday. Friday the 12th. Good gravy, buddy. Friday the 12th, 1 week from right meow for us, so 1 week from yesterday for you guys listen. Early voting begins. Just as a general reminder to you guys out there, this would be the county general and the state and federal primaries. So if you're in most of Knox County, you're going to have a county commission race. No at-larges. I think it's all districts except 5, or maybe 8, or maybe both 5 and 8. I don't remember. Most county commission districts, property assessors on the ballot, law directors on the ballot, and so those are all generals. So whoever you vote for here in the next couple of weeks is going to be who takes those seats in August, early September, and then it's your primaries for all of your state House seats, if you have a primary there, and your state Senate seats, as well as Timmy Burchett's on the ballot. He does not have a primary challenge. He does have a general challenge. If you want to vote for, this might be an interesting one for me. If you want to vote for Gloria Johnson, you need to pick up a Democratic primary because she is in a primary battle against a couple people to then go against Marsha. We already did the presidential primary, so that one's out of the way. And that's it. That's pretty much the totality of your ballot. So go to CompassKnox.com. All their stuff will be outside the paywall if you want to read up on any of these candidates, by the way. That's a cool little feature that they do for you non-subscribers out there. What are you looking at, friend?
I was trying to look for some latest Marsha Blackburn tweets.
Oh, you're giggling. So
I was trying to remember what, because it was funny, because as I was looking it up, you mentioned Marsha, and I was like, it's funny. I
was
like, oh yeah, let me see if she's getting any interesting. What do they call them now?
X's. I think they're still tweets. I don't know. I'm
still stuck on the one where tweets, but
I'm still stuck on the one where she's trying to claim credit for no income tax in the state of Tennessee. Like, that one to me is so obnoxious. Maybe I should. Well, see, I can't, because I could ask Gloria about it, but Gloria is technically going to be the rep for her House district unless she wins the Senate race, to which she could actually make a move to put an income tax in the state of Tennessee, or protect the state of Tennessee from a future income tax. So that's actually in her purview in one of her jobs that she is seeking right now, which I still think is inappropriate, but it is what it is, I suppose. I mean, if it's her at a Trump rally, you've been back to where the last time I saw her was.
Let's see here. Hamas and the radical left are working together to destroy the Jewish people.
Cool story, bro.
Ain't it, though?
So then it would be Israel and the radical right are working together to destroy Islam. Or to destroy Muslims. Like, I could say that phrase and that would be technically accurate. I don't know.
Just trying to see if there's any other good ones.
There's not. You know there's not. Come on, man.
Yeah, there's one that just says, stand with President Trump.
Yeah. She's generally not very creative in my experience. But, you know. Again, you know, it's I don't know, it's the mess of the game.
So I think she's actually doing something decent right now, surprisingly.
What's that? Come on. Give credit where credit's due. That's fair.
I think she's a part of some of this like social media stuff.
What exactly in social media stuff?
I guess in their targeting of minors, or I'm trying to protect minors.
Okay, I'd love to hear more on it because I don't know. I'm probably going to not agree with her take on it, but
if she's at least starting the conversation, I'll give her credit for that.
Okay.
Of at least trying to look at the issue of possibly at least getting social media to admit that, like, yes, we are directly marketing and trying to
manipulate youths.
Manipulate, but yeah. To
infect them with,
incentivize them to continue to keep using it as often as they can.
Yeah, but that's what they do. That's what they're doing to adults too. It's not like they're specifically going after children,
right?
They're just going after everybody's eyeballs.
But I think in a lot of people's minds, they consider, I guess, the younger minds more vulnerable to deception, and it's okay if you deceive adults. Apparently. I mean, we don't mind as much, I guess.
I don't. My take on it, again, running off of the guesses that we're working with here. My take on it is I don't know that I can think of many times where they say we're doing this to protect children where that's the truth. I think that's their excuse to try to do stuff, not the reality. I think they're trying to get control over a certain thing. In this case, they're trying to get control over the social media sphere, and this is their way to kick in the door. And they use kids as the battering ram. It's the same argument against vape products and cigarettes.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with trying to have some kind of age verification for some of these apps, I guess.
I mean, the state of Tennessee is doing that trying to do that on its own. And I think technically that would make more sense to be a federal thing. I agree with that premise, but I don't buy it.
Yeah, it gets weird when you start doing it from state to state.
Right. But I don't buy it. Like, Louisiana already has it in place, apparently. But I don't know. This is maybe chalk this up to my general distrust of politicians and stuff like that. I don't buy it. I don't think this has anything to do with kids. I think this is a total control conversation, and they're just using kids to get as the way in.
Trying
it's
to control.
The easy way.
They're just trying to control.
I don't know because I don't believe their intent is to actually protect children. So they're not telling us their real intent. So, hey, volume check. I love you. I don't know what their true intent is, but I can't think. There's so many times where it's like we're doing this to protect children stuff that both sides do. It's not a right or left game. Or it is a right and left game, not a either or. I think it's a general control conversation more than it is about actually protecting kids. I think it's
trying to control big business.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what this one. I think this one in particular. I think this isn't right. This is an avenue for them to get control of social media and to be able to pull levers inside social media to get their own ends tended to. Whether that's their quote censorship regime or anti-censorship regime, or whether it's just quieting of dissenting voices or whatever it is that they want to do, but their way to get in and to get control over the grand scheme of it is to start here. I think the we're protecting kids argument is more often than not false.
Maybe one of the few things I've talked about or heard in regards to it was having some kind of like age verification for like Snapchat of like restricting it to 16 and above or something like that. I'm not sure where else they've tried to kind of like regulate and trying to protect kids or whatever.
What do you mean? Kid stuff in general, or are we talking about in social media sphere?
It's social media.
No, I think this is them opening the door because they haven't had any real regulatory framework over social medias. Right.
I'm trying to say, like, as it stands now, I think it's the only thing that I've ever really heard of was trying to do like age restriction on some of the sites.
Okay. I mean, that's your starting point. I don't think that's the end game. I think this is, like I said, I think this is a way to get in the door to show these social media companies that they can control them and they can restrict what they're doing and how they're doing what they're doing, and that the other stuff, whether it's implicit or specifically law, will come after they get the first thing in. Because who's going to advocate against protecting children? It's the most basic of political devices. How evil would you have to be to advocate against a bill that's going to put child protections in place? Again, I acknowledge that social media is a problem, and the unfettered access by children is problematic. I don't disagree with that.
Excuse me. I just don't see it as some big like grand scheme that it sounds like you're alluding to. Okay.
Then we can leave it at that because I think I don't think. Okay, to beat a dead horse, all this hemp law stuff that went into place this year. To beat a dead horse, Briggs' entire argument for why he brought it to the floor and why we need all this regulation and stuff over this particular industry is to protect children. That was his whole case. Nothing that they put in place is doing anything to protect children. The 21 and up, like the sale to minors was already illegal. You, as an adult, buying it and yes, it was.
To who? Was it regulated?
Was
there a law in the books that said you could not sell to under 21?
I believe there was. It was not included in this one.
There was.
It was not included in this in the Senate Bill 5038 or whatever, or 3058.
Prior to that, was there a restriction on it?
It wasn't included in this one, so if it's not specifically in this one.
Prior to that, that's what I was trying to ask you.
I believe there was, yeah.
As far as I knew, there was not.
Okay, well, this one doesn't include that to my knowledge either, so then that hasn't changed.
Okay.
So then we can still sell it to kids. It's just now we can sell safer versions of it theoretically to kids.
I thought there is a restriction now.
I don't think it's attached to this law. It's a separate law. the Briggs law that he put into place has nothing to do. His case for it was to protect kids from it, but his actual function is to make the industry complicated and hard and expensive to deal in. That's the effect of his law. Whether it's, he can argue about it protecting kids, but that's not the truth. He might believe it's the truth. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him directly about it, but there's nothing in here that's protecting children. Except maybe, and maybe I'm wrong. You might be right. Maybe I'm wrong that this did explicitly put the 21 and up part in. We always operated on the assumption that we were treated it like cigarettes and alcohol anyway. And that's us being decent citizens and whatever in the way we treated it prior.
All right. There's others that will see that and just operate off, literal law says I didn't have to.
And those same others will continue and go through and get by for a long time before they get caught in trouble for it. Then not charge the taxes that they're obligated to charge, not keep the paperwork, not take on all the expense to do what they're supposed to do it correctly by the state law. And again, none of that's protecting kids. That's my point. I mean, again, I don't know from Briggs' personal perspective or not whether he actually believes that what he's putting in place is trying to protect children, but it's not. That's not the action that he actually set forth. And so I have a hard time believing that Marcia's operating on the same thing. Maybe she is. Maybe she believes it, but I don't think it's. I have a hard time believing that everybody uses the kid tool as their reason to protect children all the time. Because if that was the case, then kids are protected from everything, and adults should be able to do whatever they want. But that's not how it works either.
I don't know you went there. Maybe I just lost you. I'm sorry.
Like if stuff was actually if I was a senator or whatever, and I'm putting laws into place, and my argument is to protect children, then I would write them in a way that actually protects children and doesn't restrict adults or minimizes the restriction on adults for it, and lets adults make their own decisions because they're adults and they're supposed to be capable of making their own decisions.
I get it. I'll see if I can't find what it is she's involved with that I thought was actually halfway decent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know this particular one. My gut reaction.
Right, but your view of this,
my gut reaction
is through the lens of
every time a politician
local.
No, my gut reaction, period, is anytime a politician's excuse is we're doing this to protect children. My gut reaction is no. I don't believe that.
Okay,
I believe that that's your tool to do.
I can appreciate the skepticism.
I mean, yeah. I'm trying to think of other specifics. I mean, the books thing that we're talking about locally, that's state law stuff that we're arguing with locally, but that's the same. It's the same thing. There's no evidence that my 11-year-old reading a book about a gay family is going to harm him in any way, shape, or form.
But it's going to make him think it's okay.
Okay.
No. That erodes at our family values.
Okay. Again, the harm and your version of family values are not the same thing. And so you put all this stuff into place to protect our kids. I don't see where this is protecting children.
That's all right. I hate to be cynical, but one of the areas that I hear a lot of people on on the right try to say, "Oh, it doesn't care about your feelings," when at the same time it kind of feels like it's flip flop when you kind of talk about something that's more important to them.
It's like you said earlier on the constitutionalist, whether you're an absolutist or a contextualist or whatever.
Yeah.
Originalist,
yeah.
Yeah. You use the argument that's most valid to your current case, so you don't have to bother with consistency.
Well, don't care about your feelings. Well, I don't care about your feelings. That has to do with religion. Those are your feelings.
Yeah.
And those are
That's
beliefs.
Your faith. Right. That is your faith. By definition, it isn't real.
Well, by definition, it's something that applies to you and doesn't necessarily apply to everyone.
Right. But again, you believe in something because you can't prove it. And that's fine. You're welcome to believe that. But your lack of proof is where the line's drawn, where it gets to affect me.
Right.
If you have proof that that thing that you believe is wrong is actually wrong, then we can roll that into maybe some legal conversation about whether you can or can't do that. Like, I believe that killing people is wrong. Actually, I don't. But there's situational conversation for when we can apply and not apply that rule. And I believe that most politicians would actually agree with that statement if they were honest. Because depending on which direction you're coming from, right now, you believe that it's okay for Israel to kill all the Muslims in Palestine. Or you believe that it's okay for I don't remember, I'm trying to think of who else is going on. I don't know. You believe that it was okay for us to kill anybody in Afghanistan who we thought was a terrorist. So your argument that killing is wrong is not consistent either. It's just when it applies properly to you is when you apply it.
All right. And don't be to take it back to the Bible, but I mean that's a lot of the views when you talk about all the deaths in the Bible, as some of those were considered justified killings, basically.
Sure. And I mean, I'll be honest.
Some would view them as like genocide, but some would view it as like, oh, well, that was just the good triumphing over the evil.
Right. We had to kill the entire city because the bad people lived there.
Right.
Were all the people in the city bad?
They were blasphemous.
I don't know. They liked that golden cow a lot more than they should have. I did make a joke on the Compass Show about that dude, the Tennessee rep that married the girl from high school. Mm-hmm. I did make that joke in reference to the book burning. I made a joke about it. Sorry, I didn't make that joke. I joked about, will there be books about animal husbandry removed from the shelves because that might be a tool where a minor might get involved with an adult and later marry them and have children with them as they run for politics. Because that was sounded like, apparently the way the law is written is something about abnormal sex acts or something like that. That's the way that's what they want to exclude from being available in the library. Is anything referencing an abnormal sex act. Huh. And so Jesse's joke, which was a good joke, it's like, well, considering some of the state legislatures we have and some of the scandals that have been involved with them, I'm not sure exactly what they would consider normal because it sounds pretty wide ranging to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some weird laws that are on the books.
Yeah, I mean, sodomy is still illegal in a lot of states. And
right. I think there's like certain positions that are illegal in certain states.
Yep. It's true. So is tying your alligator to the hitching post here in Knoxville, I believe. Is that a Knoxville one? That's your favorite, right?
I could have swore I read that years ago. I think it was a Metropulse. Thank you, Jesse.
I know Knoxville proper had a city ordinance about spitting on the sidewalk. I don't know if that one's ever been corrected. And that's back when the sidewalks were not concrete. They were wooden walkways over the dirt, and your tobacco spit would rot the wood, and so that's why they made it illegal to spit on the sidewalk. Which is illogical. I mean, it's a reason.
Spit the dirt, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, it's a reasonable ordinance to put into place. But I had a thought the other day, and I'd be curious what you think about it. I think maybe one of the fixes we could do to the giant problem that is our government at large, and this would be a difficult road to hoe. Is that the phrase? Road to hoe. Is that how the phrase goes?
Road to hoe.
Row to hoe. It would be a difficult row to hoe.
Yeah, sure.
I said road the first time, and as soon as I said it, I was like, no, I think it's row, not row. Road. Row, not road.
Yeah, it's a row in a field.
Yeah. Anyway, would be that everything is sunsetted automatically. You cannot write a law in perpetuity. Everything has to you have to put a maximum number of years it could be allowed to exist, and it has to be under 10 years. No law can be written in perpetuity. All laws have to be written at maximum, and they have to sunset within 10 years. And if the law is legit and you want to keep it on the books, then you just re-up it for another 10 years or whatever. I mean, it would send
It's not the worst concept, but... Or when we take it in the frame of how many bills kind of attempt to at least go through the session.
Yeah. But I think...
When you're automatically adding all those back in because they've been termed back in.
They're on the well, you don't add them back in if you don't want to fix them. So they don't have to be added back in. But I think it would, like, even if it's state or federal in conversation, it would limit new stuff, which I think it would not be a bad thing, because it would be like, okay, hey, what do we figure out? Tennessee state legislatures get like 10, 20 apiece. God, we've done this 1,000 times. I forget it every time. There's a maximum they're allowed to do.
Right.
It's 20 apiece, because each of them, there's 3 per senator, and the senators end up with 60. Right. 20 per piece. And so it's like, I want to introduce some stuff this year, but somebody's going to have to reintroduce X, Y, and Z. So from my list of 20 that I originally was going to bring, I need to make room for these other things that we need to re-up. So which ones on my list are not that important, and maybe I can let them bump off. And so maybe we trim some of the rando stuff out of the way.
Yeah, because in that it would come down to, I guess, what district that particular bill got passed in.
I mean, it wouldn't necessarily have to be reassigned to the person that did it or the district that originally did it. It just have to be somebody would have to put it back up. But it'd have to be a conversation that you have to have.
If you're going to take that away from, I thought you were saying that in the guys that they would have to recognize
somebody would
how
have
many
to,
bills they couldn't.
Right, somebody would have to pick it up, and in the conversation amongst the caucus, they would have to have the conversation. It's like, hey, we got this bill, we got these 30 bills that are coming for reauthorization. Who's taking them?
Right.
You know, and it's like, well, I've got 20 already, I've got 20, everybody's got 20 already. Well, we got to trim something, and then they can internally discuss which ones that they want to drop off.
And you think this would fix?
Well, I mean, I think one, I think the biggest one is it would open room for, as legislative bodies change. And it would take pressure off of those legislative bodies to go back and actively deconstruct stuff. And be like, hey, you know what? This chamber used to be all Democrats or very Democratic heavy, and now it's more of a middle ground, or it's become a more Republican body. Instead of actively having to spend our time and energy taking things out of the record, we can let them fall off the record. And so that would actually take some pressure off of doing stuff because you don't have to actively take stuff out. And then it would also make it, I think more importantly, I think the real bottom line to me and why I see the value in it is it would make it, because I think to go back and kind of restate my thesis is everything has a sunset except for constitutional stuff. So if it's something so major, then you make it a constitutional amendment, and then it's in perpetuity. Everything else sunsets. So then it makes it more. I would think it would make it more attractive to, okay, this is a serious issue, and this is something major that needs to be a long-term. We need to come up with a long-term fix for. One, you're going to put more time and energy into making a well-thought-out plan to fix it, instead of just kind of throwing something at it because, well, we can fix it next year, we can amend it next year, we can do some other stuff later with it. We just need to get something on the books that we can deal with later. This would make it, okay, well, we don't have a lot of time to add and do a lot of different stuff. This isn't going to stick around forever, so let's get this done right the first time. And so we'll put some more thought and energy, maybe bring in some more experts, have some more longer conversations about how exactly we want to set this up, because we only get it, if we can get it passed, but it's only going to be in place for 5 years. So we got to get it right so that it shows how good it is in that 5-year period, so that when we go to re-up it, it's like, hey, see how great it was? We just have to re-up it real quick and we got another 5 years, no problem. Or if it's like, hey, we thought it was a good plan, we thought it was a good idea, and it's coming on the tail end of its sunset, I think we let this one die. But if it's an issue that does need attention, since the Band-Aid didn't do a very good job, let's let it die, but before it dies, let's get something put together to replace that Band-Aid and make it a nicer version of it. And I was thinking of it on the federal level kind of more than the local level when I first kind of came up with the idea. But, you know, chicken and egg, whatever. I think number one, is that it would take... it wouldn't fix the long-term politician part of the problem, because you'd have a Pelosi or a McConnell that have been there for 50 fucking years or whatever. They still exist, and so they'll re-up the stuff that they like. But it would at least let the shifting tides that is the body trim stuff off easier. I mean, I guess that's the point. Is I think the code, as it's were, like the book of laws in the United States and the state of Tennessee and Knox County and whatever, it's so massive that there's probably thousands of items that are on Tennessee law that are technically still illegal, like spitting on the sidewalk or whatever we were joking about earlier, that just need to go away. It's just time for them to go away. And instead of having somebody, like, because I joke about, like, if I took Elaine Davis's seat, if I was District 18, that would be my whole thing. All the bills I would enter would be bills to remove. That's all I would do. So I'd go back and I'd find all this stupid old stuff, some of it being dumb old stuff, some of it stuff being I philosophically disagree with, but just let's go clean up the books. We're not in the current format. There's no incentive for them to go back and clean up, unless it's something specific they want to fix a thing. But if it's just old and doesn't matter, and there's no thought into it, it still sits there. And I guess part of it to me is I don't like the idea of, okay.
Well, I mean, you could argue that's a little bit of a waste of time. If it's something that, like you said, is obviously not an issue. It's not a criminal issue that it's being prosecuted, that people are being unjustly prosecuted of said offense or whatever.
I mean, maybe, but it's certainly...
And then, is it worth the taxpayers' time to have our legislatures doing all that when it's...
That's my point.
It was a non-starter issue to begin with.
That's the point I'm making, is that it doesn't take their time because it goes away. It only takes their time if they want to continue it. That's why everything is sunsets. Everything falls off if it doesn't get continued. So spitting on the sidewalk...
I'm saying it's on the books, and it's not causing an issue at all. But you want them to spend their time... Well, I guess...
They'd only spend their time setting up this major constitutional change that I'm talking about, and then they would fall off automatically, so it wouldn't waste their time.
Right. And I'm speaking of it as it is. As if it was not in place. That as it stands, that there are stupid laws that are on the books that do sit there and that are erroneous. But like I said, they're not being prosecuted. So it's not causing any harm or issue.
Potentially. And you won't like that argument. I know you won't like this part of the argument, but potentially it's not causing problems. But go ahead. I'll come back to it in a second. Go ahead.
I mean, there wasn't much more to it. I don't see a...
Because I'm very hesitant to say what I want to say because it sounds super tinfoil hat conspiratorial, and it is, I guess. But it is technically the law, and if Sharm Allen and Chief Noel decided they wanted to re-up this thing and start actually paying attention to it, there's nothing to stop them. And then we have to go through the process of getting that law changed because it's ridiculous. Now, hopefully, since this process is big and complicated and stuff like that, that maybe Sharm and Chief Noel are on the same page, and we're going to start prosecuting people for spitting on the sidewalk in Knoxville now. Maybe this is some weird way that that they figure out how to get rid of bums. That this is some backwards way. They're like, hey, you know what? It's illegal in this town to spit on the sidewalk. Bums spit on the sidewalk all the time. That's a way we can arrest them and get them out of the street. You know.
That was another major Supreme Court thing that just came down.
Right, public sleeping statutes and stuff like that. But, and so, I don't know, I'm throwing the hypothetical together on the fly, but, while that end is something that I would kind of appreciate, not that they all need to go to jail, but, we need to do something with our homeless. We can't just continue to leave them about and pretend like they're not there. That's not the appropriate way to deal with them either. But getting them thrown in jail because they spit on the sidewalk because a judge... some of the judges in town and Sharm Allen and the police chief are all on the same page of pulling out this archaic law that never got taken off the books as a means to an end. And I'm sure there's other stuff in there, like there's other stuff deep in the old archives that you could pull out and go after and make it a thing because it's still technically illegal.
I mean, I'm not against going back through our law books and looking at these stupid shit, but as far as, what we would consider taxpayer money for our legislators to have to go back and do this.
But that's my point, is that my major change idea is they wouldn't have to do that. They'd only have to look at them if they think they need to be re-upped. And they just need to re-up it, and it's literally like, hey, we have this law. It was put into place 5 years ago. It's sunsetting this year. Do we want to keep it or do we want to dump it? All right, let's put it on the floor for a vote. We vote, we keep it, 5 more years, continues on. Or we don't want to keep it, we don't even put it on the floor, we let it die, or everybody's not sure about it, let's talk about it for a couple days, and then let's vote on it, and whatever the vote is, we go from there.
I could maybe see an accelerated process of that. I wouldn't think like a standard process of reapproving a bill.
I don't know. Put some thought into it. It's a new idea. I like it. I think it's
not wholly opposed to it.
I think it would be a way to. I think it'd be a way to streamline. To me, I'm confused on your tax expense thing. To me, it makes things cheaper. To me, it makes it less of an issue. It would take a little bit on the front end, but once it falls into place, it would really I guess the Secretary of State's office would have to do some more work because they'd have to go through and be like, oh, this one's dated. I need to. Make the House aware that this one's coming up, and they didn't vote on it, so I got to pull this one off. And for a little while, at least, there would be a lot of lawyers that would have to go and do some adjustments to trying to figure out how that falling off the books changes other stuff that's on the books. There would be a learning curve for sure, But I think a decade into it, once you have a bunch of stuff fall off, it would streamline the whole thing. Especially at the federal level. Because they don't have limits on how many bills they can do anyway. Really? And certain things by definition, like budgets and stuff like that, those are automatically, like, there's a bunch of stuff that are automatically sunsetted by law. Or maybe just make it a standard practice that everybody includes a sunset clause. That'd be a way to start it.
That just kind of seems like an odd idea. Like, hey, I want to write this law that potentially can only be in effect for 5 or 10 years.
Well, it's
I don't hate the idea of looking at a new law specifically. Like I say, maybe for doing something of like that's something, and it'd be hard to kind of.
But I think the other thing too, and some of the stuff we were talking about going on my use of kids as the excuse for all this stuff is like, okay, well, our reason for doing this was X. Is it doing what we wanted it to do?
Right.
You know, and if we never go back and look at it, it just continues doing whatever it's actually doing, regardless of what its intent was in the first place. Well, it's there, you know, like this hemp law thing, unless we have some other shit pop up that makes another issue in play, it's just going to sit there the way it is in perpetuity until something else comes up down the line to change it, or other laws change, or federal things change. Like until something changes, it's just going to sit there. And so if Briggs's excuse was we're doing this to protect children, 5 years down the road, and there's no effectual change, positive change to child access and stuff like that, you know, okay, this law and set of regulation we put in place has no effectual change. Is it something we need to continue, or do we let it go? Do we need to put a new one in place that's similar but maybe takes a little bit different tact to the goal because we missed our goal with what we tried to put in place? Because a lot of these, we don't know what they do until they're working. The idea is X, but what actually happens ends up being Y. And if Y and X are close together, okay, good enough. But if X and Y are super far apart, it's like, maybe we need to junk this thing and start over. I don't know. Like I said, it's an idea. What else you got? Let's wrap this bitch up. We haven't talked in 2 weeks.
What else has been going on?
The bridge to nowhere died. Did we talk about that already?
How about what?
The stupid footbridge died. Did we already talk about that?
No.
Yeah, they didn't get their grant funding again.
I saw they didn't get their grant funding again. I didn't realize they totally killed the project.
So congratulations, City of Knoxville. You are going to pay more because the city is intent on making this thing happen. So it's just going to come out of the general fund. It's going to happen. They haven't said it, but it's going to happen. They're going to figure out a way to fund it. Gay Street Bridge has been closed for like 3 weeks for structural issues.
Saw that, yeah. They found like some cracks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's been a kind of a running meme around some of my local dorkiness. It's like, you want to pay $70 million for a walking bridge when you have a perfectly functional walking bridge, or a perfectly good walking bridge down the street that just needs some repairs?
Right.
You don't want to fix that one?
But we need a new one.
I know. It's like, and somebody said it in one of the comments, and I thought it was actually, it was like, you could make the Gay Street Bridge just a walk, like you could just make it a pedestrian bridge, period, and it would be fine. It doesn't need traffic on it. It's not useful.
But it alleviates a little bit of traffic.
Off of Henley Street, a little bit, but for the most part, it's not a particularly useful bridge anymore because it the way it terminates and gets in all that mess on the other side, on the south side. It's not super decently accessing.
That's one of the easier ways to get over to that kind of like little south side going along the river.
No, but I mean, with the new construction and now that it's not a hospital anymore, you just go across Henry Street and take a left, and you're right there anyway.
Right.
Like it's not hugely different, but again, it doesn't matter. They need to fix the Gay Street Bridge. It's iconic. I am trying to get the Over the Edge people that did the. I was joking with them. They're about doing it off the Gay Street Bridge next year.
Really?
Maybe not the Gay Street Bridge now that it's falling apart, but.
I mean, there's got to be some good structural parts to it still.
Well, the interesting thing is I was talking to so apparently the Over the Edge is a national group that comes. That I don't know exactly how it works, but they're brought in by the local organization for the fundraiser. And so it's a company, like it's a group that's all they do are these repelling things, and they go and work with different nonprofits as fundraisers for it. And so one of the guys at the top who's pushing me off the building, I was asking him about it before he did so, and he's like, "We've never done a bridge. You know, there's been people that have talked about it. The problem we have is the liability of getting people from the bottom to the top,
right?
Because since we're in a building." and it's a closed building. It's not a public accessible building. We're the only people in the building, and this, that, and the other. And it's an elevator, and elevators have all sorts of stuff that are in place for safety measures. We don't have to worry about that. But like if it's if it's Billy Bob on his 4-wheeler that's driving people from the bottom to the top, and he rolls that 4-wheelie over, that adds a new level of liability to our issue. And so we'd have to figure out a way to get people from the bottom to the top. It's like, no, you don't. You just have to get people to park on top, and then they have to figure out their own way to get back up because they're not going again.
Right.
It's your job.
I was like, are people going more than once?
Your job is to go from the top to the bottom. That's your job, is to get them from the top to the bottom.
Right.
It's their own job to get anywhere else in the conversation.
Fucking golf cart that's shuttling people.
Yeah. But it'd be weird. It'd be a weird one though, because like access would be tough right there. I don't know if a golf cart. You think a golf cart can make it up that hill? Going up on.
I think so. I mean, it's electric, so it should have a lot of torque.
That's true. The golf cart we had at the beach was a gas one.
Well, they make electric ones. I don't know.
Just bring a Tesla. We'll be good.
Or a side by side. I mean, there's cars make it up it. There's got to be other things that can make it up it with enough horsepower.
Sure. But there's booze involved. And that's
fucking rickshaw. I don't give a shit.
Some dude on a bike.
That's right. Paying it up money.
That's enough news of the not so weird. Let's get to the news of the actual weird.
Oh, let's see here.
What?
Quote, we have to be wacky. With suggestive poses and pets, election campaigning tests Tokyo's patience.
One more time?
Not sure. The headline is, in quotes, we have to be wacky. With suggestive, end quote, sorry. With suggestive poses and pets, election campaigning tests Tokyo's patience.
So a candidate is putting sexy dog pics on his...
Let's see here. Tokyo elects a new governor this weekend, but residents say personal publicity stunts have overtaken serious campaigning to a degree never seen before, with nearly nude women in suggestive poses, pets, an AI character, and a man practicing his golf swing. Interesting.
Okay.
Notably from non-candidates.
Like I kind of like, I don't know, my gut reaction is that seems very Japanese to me.
Let's see here. They are distasteful. As a Japanese citizen, I feel embarrassed, and I see many foreign visitors pass by those billboards, and they must wonder what's going on. As a voter, I think it's outrageous and disrespectful to the other candidates who are seriously competing. Record 56 candidates. Damn. Seek a fourth term are running in Sunday's election.
That's a lot of candidates. All right. Thank you, Japan, for being weird like you are apt to be. I could see that as a fun thing. I don't know. Like, is he a serious candidate? Like, is there real interest in this person? Is there, like, I don't know, it seems like...
I don't think it's about one particular candidate.
Oh, multiple candidates doing it? That makes it more fun. I like it.
Let's see here. One billboard featured racy posters for an adult entertainment shop. Another had an almost naked female model in suggestive pose with a message that said, "Stop restricting free speech." Others showed photos of a pet dog or a female kickboxer. One candidate called AI Mayor used an image of a metallic humanoid. Campaign videos have also drawn criticism. One shows female candidate saying, "I'm so cute, please watch my campaign broadcast," and repeating her name in a high-pitched anime-style voice while asking voters to be friends on social media. She then strips down to a beige-colored tube top.
I mean, okay. Again, that sounds just all in all very Japanese to me in general.
Let's see here. Under a 1950 public office election law, candidates in Japan are free to say anything as long as they do not support another candidate or carry obviously false or libelous content. Interesting.
Agreed. I don't see an issue with that statement.
Let's see here. The rental cost about $155 per location per day. We have to be wacky or we don't get social media attention.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's not. They're not wrong. I'm sure they're getting attention for it. Now, will they get votes? I don't know what the participation levels are in Japanese mayor votes. I don't know what their participation rates are. So that
it kind of sounded like area representatives. They were talking about the city of like Tokyo.
Mayor of Tokyo, or
maybe.
I thought you said mayor.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Interesting. All right, one more for us. Give me a little.
Let's see here. Going on Caesar salad.
Tell me about Caesar salad.
Caesar salad, invented in Mexico by Italian immigrants, is still pleasing palates after 100 years. No, there's much to it. I guess it was just a story about how Caesar salad was invented in Mexico by Italians.
I love it. There's not Andrew Santino. I don't remember. There's I saw a video. It's one of the comedians in a bit. He's like, sometimes you have these cultures that make a thing and it's great, but then another culture steals it and they're just way better at it. And he's like, pasta, for example. Where was pasta invented? China. Now you guys got your noodles, we got our pasta. And he's just kind of making the joke about how like certain things just happen that way. Caesar salads are great. I like Caesar salads. I didn't realize. I think I did know that. But it's very, I don't know, it's a very Italian, like all the parts and pieces are very Italian sounding though. It's anchovies.
Yeah, I didn't know that for the longest time that's what like the flavor was.
Right, one of the main, like it's like olive oil, anchovies, and egg whites or something like that is
something like that.
Caesar dressing.
Because I didn't eat it for the longest time. I was like, actually, I don't mind Caesar. And I looked more into it, and I'm like, it's like pureed sardines or whatever.
Yeah. Anchovies and olive oil and lettuce. That's about it. Romaine lettuce and croutons.
Parmesan cheese.
Yep. It's yummy. I like them. I like them. A little bacon on them, motherfucker.
You're gross.
What? A little bacon? Maybe chicken?
There's chicken. How about bacon?
There's not a lot of stuff that bacon.
Caesar dressing's pretty strong flavor. You're not tasting too much outside of that.
It's true. That's very
true. At least for me.
I made some at the beach, and I made it a little too heavy on the dressing, and I got a few complaints from the family. And I told them to suck it, eat it, or don't. It's your problem. All right, one last one.
He flipped off a trooper and got charged. Now Vermont is on the hook for $175,000.
Good deal. I like it.
Vermont has agreed to pay up to $175,000 to settle a lawsuit on behalf of a man who was charged with a crime for giving a state trooper the middle finger in 2018.
What was he charged with?
Let's see here. Lawsuit was filed on behalf of ACLU of Vermont on behalf of Gregory Bombard. It says Bombard's First Amendment rights were violated after an unnecessary traffic stop and retaliatory arrest in 2018.
But what was the arrest for? Like, what was he actually arrested for?
Let's see here.
Come on, give me deets.
He stopped his vehicle on February 2018 because he believed Bombard had shown him the middle finger, according to the lawsuit. Bombard denied that, but says he did curse and display the middle finger once the initial stop was concluded. Bombard was stopped again and arrested on a charge of disorderly conduct. And his car was towed. He was jailed for over an hour and cited to criminal court, according to the ACLU. The charge was eventually dismissed. Under the settlement
disorderly conduct. That's the crime is disorderly conduct.
Is that what it said? Yeah.
Yeah.
Charge of disorderly conduct.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't suggest it to anybody. Don't go out there flipping off cops because they'll find something like disorderly contract to charge you with. But maybe you can get state of Tennessee to pay you $170,000. So maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's an investment in your own future. You could pay for half a college. Get out there and show them cops the bird. I never liked that. I remember there's been stories on that one on and off for years, and I've always kind of enjoyed the. I always think it's a bad idea. Don't get me wrong. You shouldn't do it. I wouldn't encourage anybody to do it, but it certainly shouldn't be. You shouldn't get arrested for giving a cop a finger.
Right.
But
it borders on that edge if you are then disturbing other people around that.
I think it's just one of those you made him mad, and so he might got an excuse. He's trying to use any excuse to get back at you. I think retaliatory is the correct term that the ACL used in that.
And that one, definitely the way it sounded.
Oh, poor puppy has been struggling. It's that time of year. He's scared to death every night at dusk. I don't know if you heard it right when we got started. There was a couple.
Yeah.
Went off, and so he'll spend the next 2 hours trying to.
I don't think it's been as bad this year as previous years.
Man, we were
where
serious.
It's 5 days prior, people start doing it, and 5 days afterwards, people are still doing it.
I think tonight and tomorrow are going to be pretty active because as Thursday was the actual 4th. I don't think we had a lot of pre-players like we usually do, but I think we're going to have a big weekend. I think tonight. I don't know. We had our headphones on. I don't know how much we heard locally here, but I think tomorrow night we'll get a bunch, and maybe some Sunday crazies.
Maybe.
I don't get it. I enjoy it day of. And actually me and the kids are talking about maybe starting an organization and doing a neighborhood fireworks show. But apparently, again, talking to Scott and Jesse about it, it is illegal. There is no permitting. There's no excuse. There's no way you can put your own show on.
In Knox County.
In the city of Knoxville.
In the city, yeah.
Unless you're the city of Knoxville. Because they put on a good show. I mean, to be fair, it's a good show they do downtown.
All right.
And so it's just joke take. But the joke take is they don't want competitors. They don't want somebody else putting on a better show than them. So they're not going to let anybody else do it. Or it's a safety thing, which is probably the truth. But I'm going to go with my you don't want me. You don't want to compete with me. I'm going to do a better show than you are.
I could outdo you.
I mean, I could if I got good enough sponsors.
I got hundreds of dollars to spend. You got hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend, but that doesn't matter. I got a Temu account. I can get all sorts of good shit for cheap. That's right.
That's a show, everybody. Yeah, don't buy shit from Temu. Just don't do it. It's just bad crap. Crap on crap on crap. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go to the website, almostagreement.com, all the cool stuff we got going on there. Early voting starts this week, so go to, I don't know where, other than Compass, but go to Compass and talk to them, or check out CompassKnox.com, and you can read their candidate profiles. That's as good as you're going to get in town, and it's free for if you're not a subscriber, you can get their election stuff for free right now, so you should take advantage of that free service from CompassKnox.com, almostagreement.com, hollerboo.com. That's coming up in October. You can sign up today and get registered to take part in our fun event. So, Almost Agreement, everybody. Thanks for listening. Check out the website. Tell your friends about us. All that cool stuff. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.